There are things in racing which are really uncertain. There is the uncertainty on how you'll get a good start, what qualifying position you'll put yourself in. But there is a great certainty here today, and that is that two drivers at the end of some amazing two races that will be going on today are going to be representing Malta when they head themselves over to the Monaco Esports Federation Sim Racing World Cup. That will be in October, but we've got the mere point of national qualifiers to get things sorted here live and pretty much uninterrupted for the majority of proceedings here today with World Pro Racing. And we are live, of course, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitch, as well as some other amazing partners that go with us. ESTV, the Esports Television Network, Motorsport.tv online, and on top of that as well, we're live with TVM Sport for some amazing action. I'm Jake Sperry, Nicholas Hillebrand, along with me for the ride today. And Nicholas, the track we challenge ourselves at overall for these two races is going to be the Red Bull Ring. It is going to be a tricky challenge in the terms of you need to be pretty much looking here, there, and everywhere in terms of how you battle. It's a high-speed thrill ride, but it's also one of those circuits where tactical nuance, I think, is going to overshadow the way that everyone goes about their racing today.
Yeah, I think today's going to be a host to some interesting races. The Red Bull Ring, of course, isn't the most complicated track. You don't have a very high chance of getting lost there. We only have 10 corners, but it's a very high-speed circuit. And, I think we're going to see some fantastic slipstream battles here. And, with these junior Formula cars, it's going to be really, really interesting, I think.
And that's one of the keys as well, is what car are we driving today? We are on Assetto Corsa, and we're looking at driving the Tortoise 01, which is out there, the 2010 model of Tortoise chassis that is out there. And what I find really interesting as a chassis is that Tortoise as a company really got their break in the late 90s, early 2000s when it came to Formula Renault. They jumped up forward, they got themselves into the scene, and effectively this 2010 spec is really when they started to say, okay, this is the sort of car that pretty much writes the book on what Formula 4 pretty much is and has done for the last decade, or almost coming up decade and a half.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this is the last chassis pretty much before it got universally, like, worldwide set to Formula 4. This was still Formula Abarth with the Abarth engines, but a lot of what was learned from this chassis was taken in, and much like with Tatus as well, making the chassis for the ADAC Formula Masters and all those other series as well. They have been a very widely selected chassis for Formula 4 worldwide. They have obviously a very wide pedigree in racing, also making the F3 Asia and, of course, W Series chassis as well. And they're safe racing cars. Obviously, it's not too dangerous here, but produce great racing, and I can't wait to see the racing that they produce today.
There'll be a lot of great racing, and as with everything is an evolution. Everyone's looking to try and improve and get to the next level. We do have the chance to jump in and have a conversation with Michele Magro over at the Malta Esports Federation and really get an opportunity to understand what makes great opportunities out there, and especially with a series like this, an opportunity to get in and develop. Michele, would you say that this for the Malta Esports Federation is a massive crown jewel of homegrown achievements and looking to try and build up a generation upon a generation by entering tournaments like this?
Thank you. That's exactly it, and that's what we're looking to do. We've only been around for a couple of months now. We officially launched in May, and we're always on the lookout to try and find opportunities for Maltese players to actually start their careers somewhere and get opportunities to actually go on the main stage somewhere else and try out an esports discipline actually on the big stage.
Well, you have a sense now of where you are and what you're trying to do, and this global strategy that has been going in towards esports in general. It's been a case of trying to stamp your place as an industry leader and a place where everyone sees this as the ideal place to go out and really, say this is where esports should be and this is where you drive the place forward. And in terms of now how you look at that, the two drivers that are going to be at the end result of today, how important is it to essentially take these drivers and give them the opportunity to say, okay, you are brand ambassadors for what Malta's vision is for the upcoming future?
First of all, it's extremely important as a proof of concept that basically something like this exists, and something like this is actually an opportunity that is available out there for people to take. And also, it's a proof of concept for people to actually dedicate time, energy, and something that normally people would call a video game, but in actual fact, it can be a lot more than that. It can be opportunities, potentially even a career, and in the case of sim racing, it's also potentially a step towards real motorsport as well. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, and what's important for us is actually creating the awareness around the fact that these things exist. Other countries have already had opportunities to maybe display this to their governments, the industry, and being able to see esports kind of flourish a bit more. Of course, Malta has, as a small country, small economy, but at the same time, kind of we act fast to try and push things forward, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here. We saw an opportunity, especially with the International Esports Federation. We're members of the International Esports Federation, and basically we take these opportunities to and offer them to, first of all, to entities like World Pro Racing, that is, the homegrown sim racing facility and tournament organizer that we have here, and that they're doing amazing things. And I also want to thank them a lot for actually taking up organizing these national qualifiers themselves. And then the players themselves, that they get the opportunity to, first of all, compete amongst each other, and kind of get the opportunity and pride to be called the best in the country. Then to go test that out against their European counterparts, and if they make it through those European qualifiers, they get to get an all expenses paid trip and go to Monaco, the historic capital of racing, potentially, and experience that there, and play on the big stage.
So some wonderful opportunities then moving forward. Michele Magro there joining us then from the Malta Esports Federation, and what a wonderful push forward it has been over the course of battling. But as things stand, we're going to take a little look at practice to see where the times find themselves right now over the grand course of some amazing racing that is going to be moving forward. And I'm just going to bring myself a chance to bring Nicholas Hillebrand back into conversation then just for a moment, because Nicholas, we're going to be running over towards practice. And this is going to be the crucial time now where drivers are trying to figure out, okay, I need to understand this car. I need to understand every element of it, where its strengths are, where its weaknesses are, and how I want to battle. How do I want to find the time? And it's a track really where you really just need confidence under braking. And when you've got an open formula style car, the opportunity to hit the brakes and really be confident with the car, which is going to be pretty much for the first sector, you're going to be more reliant on mechanical aspects of downforce, but especially the second and third sectors where the downforce of the car is pretty much going to be all about that aerodynamics. How are you balancing how you go about preparing the race and preparing to go out and really challenge?
I'd say for Red Bull Ring, it's definitely a track, where you need low downforce sets, simply because, you just have these enormous straights just all around the last and first sector. And, the main load of cornering is just going to go onto the tires in these situations. So it'll be a lot of tire management, and also just having low downforce with a balance that you have a drivable car with, because especially in dirty air, the balance of the car changes quite a lot. And it's going to be, I think, quite difficult for these guys. Of course, because we don't have the longest races. We have sprint races. So if you qualify a bit further back, you have to make your moves quickly. And at the same time, it's going to be pretty much pack racing if all the drivers get comfortable in the cars. And it'll be a very action-packed race.
Certainly should. We've got 2 races here today, of course, each lasting the grand total of about 15 minutes. So not very long at all in terms of putting everything together, putting all of the times, all of those availabilities out there on track. But what they do know is that they won't have long to figure out what they need, and it should be an interesting battle. And what I also find is something very interesting is we are going to be heading onto track in the next couple of moments' time here. Ladies and gentlemen, just waiting for the switch over to... tyre wear. They're not going to have too much, but it might just be the difference today here, Nicholas, where it's a difference between a lot of tyre wear or from a great tyre to a not so great tyre. Not necessarily you're going to be burning out a tyre in 15 minutes, but you'll be going and dealing with a tyre that's not quite as good as when you start the race. And the key is the majority of it's going to be left-hand side tyres, which is probably going to be the issue. Only 2 left-handed corners on this track.
Perfectly from Aaron De Battista just now. These sausage curbs on the outsides of turn 1 and turn 3, they're just so vicious. You know, you have to you run a little bit off, and yeah, like we see here, like Frank just parking the car there, like trying to get the braking point down a little bit. But we actually had that in F1 in the last couple of years as well, with you know, drivers complaining about those sausage curbs. You hit them a little bit, the car gets loose on the rear and gets a little bit upset, and especially then we have this problem with tires heating up. You know, if you have a little bit of a burnout and these left-hand tires, as you mentioned, getting majority of the load, you will have to slow down a little bit then if you have these situations, or you overheat the tires, which then lose more and more and more grip.
Yeah, and that grip, I think, is going to be key. And the practice times do look interesting right now. Currently, Aaron De Battista on top at the moment, 129.787. We're taking a look right now at Nathan Vella making a run now in towards Rauch corner, then the long left-hander, dip a little bit down the hill, always easy to understeer out wide, and the following left that follows, a Verth corner. Again, another corner, easy to run out wide, and you've got to really flick the car back as you run up and down this roller coaster heading towards the right, which is Jochen Rindt. So that is always going to be an important challenge. Moving through that final corner of Red Bull Mobile and running over the line, we'll see what sort of outlap that sort of sets up, and you then have to go out there and get things going. You can see the clock as well as they cross the start line, and that gives you an indication of how much you've got to be pretty much on it. It's a case of you've got yourself about 2 minutes left on the clock. So if you're looking at practice, you're going, okay, I've got 1 lap to really figure out where are my braking points, where do I want to go out and attack. Most people will dial down 98% of what they want. Practice here is going to be key for probably the last 2%.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about having that rhythm, and you know, you mentioned braking points earlier. Like for these harsher corners, for Niki Lauda, for Remus, for Schlossgold, you know, this entire like first to beginning of the second sector, it was it's always like a very important thing that you brake as late as possible, pretty much, without compromising your exit. And especially through turn 3, as we just saw Michael Mercia taking that corner, you have so many different lines there simply because it just goes so massively off camber in the middle of the corner. You know, the rear end really wants to step out there, even if you're far away from that sausage curb. So it's really difficult to manage that car through there, actually, and keep up all the momentum. And then here, Rauch, Wirth, our 2 left-handers of this track, pretty much. You have to get the braking point, again, perfectly right, but brake a little bit too much, you lose momentum. And that momentum you can't build up very quickly, again, because we only have around 140 horsepower in this car. That takes a little bit of time. And here, again, these last 2 corners, Rindt, Red Bull Mobile, you really need to carry a lot of momentum, need to get the perfect line. It's so easy on these big runoffs here on the side. As you see here, Mikael Melchia really getting caught out, that massive drop. Couple of friends of mine who drive in the ADAC GT Masters, even in GT cars, which are a little bit sometimes slower than these Formula 4 style cars, through that corner, they're telling me, you feel at least twice your body weight just pressing you into the seat there. Just that insane drop, all these G-forces happening there. Of course, you don't feel that in the simulator, but the car is still experiencing it in the sim, and you have to manage with that load change.
You certainly do. Mikael Mercieka then doing a good job. Checkered flag is out then here in practice. So as things stand, Aaron Di Battista currently the quickest on the 29.7. Mikael Mercieka second on a 29.9. And Dean Vella third on there in a 1:30.112 at this point. But a little look at Andrea Rizzo out there on track, 8th position, getting a little bit of a slide coming through Ramus Corner, turn 3, and the run up and down this roller coaster section heading to Schlussgold at turn number 4. I do apologise for not the best German accent as I can name all the corner names. That's why we've got Nico here, because he's got the better understanding of it than I do. But some wonderful attacking corners. And I tell you what, this is one of the few circuits, Nicholas, that really uses the track layout just beneath the Styrian Mountains to say, okay, we've got up, got down, we've got one car off in the gravel, which is not ideal, but it really does use the undulating ebbs and flows of what a circuit should and can do.
I went to this circuit once before for ADAC GT Masters, like 3 years ago now, and I have to say it's honestly one of the most beautiful circuits I've ever been to. I've been to Indianapolis, to the Nürburgring, to Spa, and to this place, and this is legitimately the only place where you can see around 80% of the track from just the outside on the left side, turn 1 grandstand, which is just, first of all, absolutely insane. And then you have that beautiful view of the Alps just around it. You have this wonderful valley on the other side. You're just enchanted by everything, and then you have exciting racing to boot. So it honestly is a fantastic track. And as you said, from the first track layout here in the 70s, it didn't really change all too much overall. It basically just made it a little bit smaller, took a few of the more dangerous areas away, because of course we had a few fatal accidents here as well. Mark Donoghue in 1975, who went over a barrier and through an advertisement board, so very grim. And after that, they modernized the circuit. Honestly, the shape basically stayed the same, just a little bit shorter, and still just it goes up the hill. It's insanely beautiful. I had a race taxi there once, and just the elevation is still quite hard to believe. And especially coming down, you just don't notice it in the simulators. So fantastic racetrack, and definitely, a recommendation of myself. If any of the viewers ever want to, visit Austria, this is a go-to location for sure.
I'd wholeheartedly agree on that. And I think what's especially impressive about this Red Bull Ring circuit, especially in the real world, is the fact that it was only about 15 years ago that the track pretty much was not in an operational state. It took a lot of money from Red Bull to bring it back into a racing condition. And I'm so glad that they did, because you've got this wonderful circuit, which is not only fast, but the lap time is pretty short. And everyone, in terms of what modern track design looks at, Nicholas, is a circuit which looks to try and go 5 kilometers, 5.5, 6 kilometers, and it has to tick all these boxes to be great. This is very much a unique circuit of its own design. It is fast, it is quick, and crucially, from what was the late 90s, early 2000s to now, very minimal changes to the track.
Absolutely. And basically the same thing happened to Kyalami as well in South Africa, where apparently there's being deals made, for Formula One to go there again. The track was basically in disrepair, was basically completely bankrupt, and, no money to fix it. And Porsche came along, bought the track, completely modernized it, and we've been having the 9 Hours of Kyalami in the IGTC series for the last couple of years. Fantastic race, and they really kept the spirit of the track still alive. So it's really beautiful when you can see tracks with so much tradition, with so much history in motorsport, still being kept alive by these companies, by Red Bull, by Porsche, coming in and, keeping the tradition alive.
Yeah, and that tradition, I think, can go even further when you marry tradition with innovation. And that's what we've got here today. And the great racing that's going to be coming up. Qualifying will be up right about now. And drivers will have themselves 15 minutes then on the clock at the top of your screen. That will be your understanding of, okay, this is how much time we've got. And to put the best time together on the board, you have just got to quietly put everything together. There was someone off there down on the inside, which is not quite the right place to be. But looking at Nathan Vella right now, as Frank Schiberas will also be gearing up for that outlap. How important is it just to get the tyres warmed up, get everything nicely put together, and just to put yourself in the right operating condition? On cue, you can see there just really trying to work the wheel, trying to really generate that tyre heat, get everything up to temperature to go out and attack a lap. Let's take a look from a driver's eye perspective then, as just letting through one driver right now, looking to really just gear up those tyres and then get on the power through the final corner and start a lap here around the Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, down the front straight, and as you said, everything has to be up to pressure already, especially in Assetto Corsa. It's very, very dependent to have the optimum tire pressure and all four of these tires, and it goes very wide there. Might actually be, it is already an invalid lap. So already quite from turn one on, with Frank Schiberas here on board, quite visible how difficult it is to just get this first run in, because you just go a little bit wide. Or even like if it stays valid, that bump over the outside sausage curb, it takes away so much momentum. You have to catch the car again, Dean Vella here going through Wurz now, coming towards the end of his first flying lap. At the moment he is in first position, having the fastest outlap, and Assetto Corsa counts the outlap as well. So in case someone doesn't get a timed lap proper, they still have the chance to have a timed lap with the outlap.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And Dean Vella, for the first representative lap time over the line, sets a 1:30.236. So I very highly doubt that the 11-second margin is going to stay for too much longer for Dean Vella in terms of this race. And no time currently set by Daryl Martinelli. So there'll be some work for the driver in 9th position, running in the number 38, to really start flying back forward and trying to build and generate all of that pace to put the best lap together. And it's worth noting as well that they do have 3 different types of tyre compound that they have available to them today. They have a soft, a medium and a hard compound, but we're expecting here today, really, with these ideal track conditions, about 26 degrees track temperature out there, Nicholas, that most drivers will probably be using the soft for both races.
Yeah, it's really all about the track temperature as well, because a couple of, so to say, conditions for the circuit. When the track is far too hot, the soft is about good for 1 to 2 quali laps, but you can't survive a race on it, simply because after the first 3-4 laps, the tire will start experiencing massive drop-off, and the car will become near undrivable. So it's really, really difficult to just get everything together there. Daryl Martinelli there also having trouble with Red Bull Mobile, as we addressed earlier. And first times have already been set by everyone pretty much now, except for last 2 places there, which have still only got the outlap. But we can see how close the timing is. Like the top 5 are within 0.8 of a second. And I can tell you from experience around this circuit, you just need to carry a little bit better momentum through 1 or 2 corners. And because of the flowing nature of the circuit, you can go a lot quicker. Mikel Mericia improving by 0.8 then, as we see someone spin off in the background.
Yeah, that was a pretty big one. I think it was Andrea Rizzo who may have had that issue going through the final corner, so troubles there. So Mikel Mericia leading this one, 1:30.046. It's Dean Vella second, Sheldon Muscat already using up the tyres, taking a tow back to the garage and looking to get back out and racing again, setting those times. And already 1/3 of qualifying has already been put into the books. And the fastest driver, when it came to practice, is down at the bottom of the timesheets right now. 2:12.158, Aaron Di Battista at this point. The good news, though, for drivers who are qualifying, if they do get a bad qualifying in race 1 here, Nicholas, is that there'll be a separate qualifying session, if memory serves me correct, for the second race out there. So it means that they will get a second opportunity out there to get right up there near the pointy end if qualifying didn't quite go the way they wanted to in race 1.
Absolutely. We also have a kind of changed up version of a top 10 point system, which is a little bit similar on the first view to the F1 point system, but a little bit more equally spread out over the top 4 positions. So quite interesting to see 10th place, which we sadly don't have today because one of our drivers was not able to show up. So basically 9th place, if you finish, you still get 5 points. So definitely something to stick around for. You know, the top 2 get through, and you never know with these 2 races, you know, on the circuit like this, what could happen.
No, you absolutely don't. 25 points for a victory out there overall here today. 20 points for second, 15 for third, 10 for fourth, and then 1 point down after that for each respective position. So it is a huge boon to be up inside the top 3, the top 4, because that's where the big points are going to be scored. It's not going to be a case today where you put the car in first position and finish off in 7th in the second race and it's going to be a guarantee you've got it. Absolutely not. Consistency very much king today, and I think this is going to be a really cool battle to see who is going to put themselves there. Murcieka does go even quicker now, breaks into the 129 to the 129.7, and that is good enough to be half a second clear now of Dean Vella, or close enough to half a second. Of course, the hundredths and thousandths of a second making a small difference there. But looking at Andrea Rizzo right now, running up through towards the final couple corners, 1:32 flat, the current time on the board, and that is at least at this point in time 2.3 seconds adrift of Murcieka's time, which is leading overall what everyone is capable of doing. And Rizzo will move over to the line, and the question of improvement then is that at least at this point there was not any improvement on that lap time, so remains in 8th position, but they are down now to just 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Dean Vella in second, jumps into the pits. Sheldon Muscat coming over the line, currently a 1:30.3. And Aaron Di Battista does improve to 1:29.795, so goes second fastest by not much at all. Nathan Vella now looking for a time here. He's currently in 5th.
And you can see, like, honestly, it looks like quite a big gap to Andrea Rizzo right now with the 1:32, but we've seen him do a mid 1:31 as well. I think he just has to get it together. And obviously consistency will be a big key, as, I'd say that's almost commentator's curse with consistency, and in the background someone spins off. But, you know, if you're within that time window, as it is right now, you know, these around 1.8 seconds, 1.6 seconds that we have from Michael Murcia to Daryl Martinelli, I'd say you still have a very good chance of fighting for the lead here, as long as you're just able to stay consistent. The slipstream fighting here will be absolutely insane. Last weekend we had the F1 Grand Prix here. We had 5-car battles, complete pack racing, as if we had, NASCAR trucks on an oval. And, all these guys were able to keep up with each other simply because the front two going side by side here is just that much slower that the rear guys, even if they're a little bit slower, can just keep up with them. So it's going to be very interesting to see here how the racing situations play out, if someone can get clear of everyone else, or if they'll all stay bunched up together.
Frank Suberis then, staying hydrated, getting a drink coming out of the pits, and looking to get up to speed then. 80 kilometers an hour, the speed limit in the pits. And you can also notice as well, 20 litres there on the right of the steering wheel, saying that's how much I've got to play with out there in terms of a tank. So on the brakes, going right down into second gear, looking up on the exit into third gear, I think is rather interesting. Now, that would be a measure, Nicholas, I'd have thought, to try and stop that wheel spin effect.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a little bit unconventional in a real car, but in these situations here, obviously you have a little bit less about the mechanical hindrances to worry about, since, you know, it's in a simulation. Here, really, it is the most important thing to just keep that wheel spin away, because it's still safer, you know. Even if it's a little bit more risky to go with that wheel spin, you can gain a few hundreds, maybe a tenth, maybe 2/10 up that straight, and then, you know, it's on the way to the next corner. But it is just safer, and especially in Frank Severus' situation, you know, where I don't think he really has to just find every single last tenth in where he is. He just has to get safe around the track right now, and you know, get the momentum from just general pace around the circuit.
Yeah, and that general pace is going to be crucial. So to Niki Lauda curve then, turn number 1, the sharp right hand, a little bit of a wiggle on the rear of the car, gets it pointed though back into position and flicking down the hill. Of course, they've installed a new chicane here, which is always something nice to see for the moto or motorbike riders out there. But on the brakes, turn 3 at Remus Corner, back up the gears, right up over the curb, and then you've got this roller coaster section a bit up, and now you start to hit that drop and that descent, looking towards Schlossgold Corner, gravity against you every single stage of the way as you look to try and maximize that corner. And a slightly wider line, one car off would have been a little bit distracting then on the exit, and leaning back in the chair, trying to go forward and say, okay, that didn't quite work. So looking to go forward, Mikael Mercieka as well, also looking for times. And drivers are going to be running out of time now at this point here. They are going to be running out of time, and they are going to be running out of opportunities to put everything together, because they are down inside the last 2 minutes, 15 seconds out there as they go. And it is as close can be up at the top, just half a 10.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, they're still starting on the first row, but obviously Aaron De Battista will not want to take that lying down, you know. It's always an exciting aspect to be that close on times to the next car ahead or to the next car behind, but obviously you want to be the car ahead of that small gap. So, you know, everyone, I think, is already getting quite hot here, besides the ambient temperatures, which have been quite high recently, I would imagine, in Malta, since it's already been cooking in Germany. But yeah, you know, everyone is always pushing, everyone's always trying to be as far up as possible, and Aaron De Battista definitely will not want to slow down, and Dean Vella as well, you know, as a guy that we've seen quite a lot here on World Pro Racing over the last couple of years already. He will want to get that gap further down, or maybe take that pole position from Mikael Mercieka.
Absolutely, taking that pole position would be great. Currently down by 0.3 of a second here is Vella, moving through the final 2 corners, really charging through that final section, keeping it nice and neat over the curbs and over the line. We'll have 1 lap after this, and ultimately crossing the line, no improvement there. So behind him is that driver who leads overall, Mikael Mercieka, on his final flying lap. As heavy as that run was over the curbs, that's his lap done. Spinner behind there was Dean Vella, actually, at turn 1. So Vella did go around at the opening corner, and both of their qualifying efforts then are done. They're not going to improve. Sheldon Muscat is up against the clock right now here, though, Nicholas, to move himself forward then from 4th to 3rd or higher, and should be able to get 1 more lap in after this.
And really, really difficult now to get that last lap in. Gets quite, actually, kind of compromises exit out of the last corner to, you know, get closer to the wall.
Good.
And yeah, actually moves him up a little bit, gets him closer by 0.2. And Dean Vella, since, you know, messed up that last run there, sadly not able to counter there. And I think that's pretty much the last people now coming in. De Battista coming in and not able to make that final improvement. So he'll be a little bit bummed out about that, but, you know, Still, second place, fantastic time, and definitely kept us on our toes there. Nathan Vella trying to make his way around now, and I think that's out of turn 3, if I'm correct. So making his way downhill now.
Yeah, down the hill towards Slushgold Corner on track, of course, and such a difficult corner, and you're always having to turn off the exit as well when you put the power down. Never truly staying in a straight line through that section of track, and now flicking through Rauch Corner, Wirth coming straight afterwards, and the top 4 have already got those times in. And crucially, Sheldon Muscat jumping up from 4th to 3rd on the 29.910. Nathan Vella with a lot of work to do to improve the times, as Frank Schiberis actually goes up into 5th position on a 1:30.611. So a big lap time there to bump down Nathan Vella once more. But here comes the charge towards the line. Is there anything more? Is that little look? He was already grabbing his keyboard, actually, as he was coming to the line. So 1:30.6 then, I believe, does not change the times out there. But crucially, really close qualifying, and that's exactly what we want to see. It looks like today here, Nicholas, it's going to be the top 4 fighting for 2 overall places. And, of course, the way they go through, we've got national qualifiers going on right now. National qualifiers will turn into continental qualifiers for the finals in October.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, overall, it's just really, really interesting as well. As you said, the top 4 were the closest ones here in this situation. However, I wouldn't count the others out just yet, simply because, it is in this nature that, you can gain a lot of time if you all work together. But obviously, everyone here will be, it's no team fight. It's all everyone for himself. So they'll all be fighting with a knife between their teeth, to translate a German saying, so to say. And, if they just hold each other up a little bit, that's already just that little bit of time that the others can need to get back there. And as soon as they're in slipstream range, that slipstream will carry them along, and that will enable them to make a move. There we are.
Yeah, so the opportunity to make moves today, I think, is going to be really important. Keeping an eye out on who is going to be where and who is going to get themselves through. Make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you like, you share, you subscribe, you follow, you do everything that you need to keep yourself up to date with more amazing content here with the team at World Pro Racing, because we've got national championships coming up next week, the opening round overall. And of course, the winner of the national championships, I do believe, goes to the FIA Motorsport Games, which has recently just switched from Gran Turismo over to Assetto Corsa Competizione. So that'll be a very interesting small switch that will be going through and seeing who's going to jump themselves up to the next level in that regard. But we are just about a minute away from getting into racing action. But Nicholas, this opening race, this is pretty much your trendsetter. You don't want to be putting yourself out of contention early by throwing it off the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in these opening stages, it's going to be important that you're just able to stay consistent, that you're able to stay calm, and, obviously that you push, but know your limit. As I said, Niki Lauda curve and Remus, both of those corners at the apex, they go either off camber or over this little crest there in Niki Lauda curve, and it's so easy to spin the car there, simply because you just quickly, very, very quickly lose the load off of your rear tires. And we already spoke about the early upshift there to just counteract that wheel spin. It's going to be, people will really have to pull all the stops and will have to be alert that they just...
Absolutely do. And it should be an interesting battle out there. Lights, though, are on. And we're going to get ourselves then ready and going. 15 minutes then have got themselves started off, and a couple drivers then down in the pits already then for the early runs. Into the opening corner then they will find themselves and look to try and really drive with an element of happiness then as they run down the hill for the first time, and then that small run back up. Top 2 have broken away. Murcieka and Di Battista. It was a really slow start for Sheldon Muscat, who is going to be all the way at the back. But Murcieka with a good start then and builds a gap of about 6-7 tenths of a second. Good scrap going on for third.
Yeah, there was a spin in the background there. I don't really know who it was. Might have been Kessler Bayer. I saw his name light up there. Or actually, I think it may have been Sheldon Muscat there, dropping all the way down. So really unlucky start for him. And yeah, he'll definitely have to try and recover from that for now.
One of the keys is get the best start you possibly can. There's Nathan Vella, who is up there, and some side-by-side as Andrea Rizzo now has to really go out there and battle. That's a Beja, I believe, then, running around the outside and getting the move done. Brilliant commitment through the corner. It's not often that you see that. And oh, Rizzo's gone around. It's going to hit the wall. And those Armco barriers can be really unforgiving. And that's just the case. And there, bang. Just again, struggling to get that car turned back around again. It's clear there's some form of suspension damage.
Yeah, really unforgiving. And of course, just this transition as well from gravel. You know, this quite deep gravel pit here at the Red Bull Ring. And then that transition into grass, quite slippery. You know, put down a little bit too much power and immediately you're going to go around. So really unlucky for Andrea Rizzo there. And now everyone is sort of slightly in their little space there with these 1 to 1.5 seconds pockets.
Well, it's a very good start then if you can build that 1 to 1.5 seconds, because you can mitigate the elements of the draft out there on track. But your top two will be very happy with the gap that they've got here to Frank Skiberas in third position. The one thing they wanted to do early here is build up time and build up a gap. And it doesn't matter really, Nicholas, whether you're first or you're second. You're not racing to be the overall victor. You're racing for a spot inside the top two. So that, in terms of reality, is fantastic if you win. Yeah, great, kudos. But the goal of today is to qualify and not necessarily to win.
That is the logical way of seeing it, yes. However, we're talking about racers here. And, you know, racers, they basically see, okay, I am in a very good position right now. If I was an F1 driver and paid, you know, hundreds of thousands or millions a year, you know, I would also see it that way. However, there's a car in front of me and I think I could go a little bit faster. So these guys will definitely still try to close that gap. Obviously be careful with these cut tracks there as well. And, you know, just keep it consistent. You see Daryl Martinelli here now gaining a little bit on Kirsten Bayer, just overdoing it a little bit through Red Bull Mobile. And in turn one, he's not quite able to put a move on, but definitely getting ready to. And that was...
hit the curve on the inside. And there goes Martinelli. And it is such a one-line corner. And you do have to thread the needle at the Niki Lauda curve. And just like that, it goes wrong and goes around. There is Andrea Rizzo all the way at the back of the field. And might have an opportunity to soon gain some spots if Martinelli is not up to speed. But it looks like Martinelli did get up to speed and is already there at the next corner. So it looks, at least for the moment, like Andrea Rizzo at this point in time will remain in 9th position. But there was also a case there that Kirsten Beja was a little bit offline through that opening corner, and more troubles out there on track for Martinelli. It looks like he's had a second spin, and that car must be very, very damaged then, and it will be a long, long road back to the pits. Worst place to have that issue is out there on circuit, but at least for the moment, Andrea Rizzo is certainly working very hard at the moment, working to try and get back into this race. And every point right now matters, because this is the sort of race where it literally does take here, Nicholas, one small mistake and everything can turn on a sixpence.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree there. Overall, I think also after that first spin, Martinelli may have had, you know, quite hot tires. Mentioned that these hot tires, you know, as soon as you have a little bit of a slide going, the tire model on the AC1 is not very forgiving at all. So, you know, they're really having to take care of their tires, you know, they're really having to be careful, especially out of all these acceleration zones here, you know, when you just lose a little bit of grip from the load. And, yeah, Martinelli may be a little bit too aggressive there. And, you know, just flooring it, obviously trying to get back up to speed, as Kirsten Beyer now is fighting Dean Vella for that 5th place. So they go down side by side into Schlossgold.
Looking to try and go around the outside. Andrea Rizzo, by the way, is in the pits, defended nicely by Beja down the inside, but it's run slightly too deep. And up and under goes Dean Vella. and takes that one away. So an easy move in the end, just trying to see who could outbrake the other, and that was just the case there of being patient from Dean Vella. First to break at the marker at the right time, and it certainly paid dividends. But look at the front wing there for Kirsten de Beher. It is very much tilted to one side, so there's definitely some damage having to be worked against at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Side pod as well seems to have a few minor scrapes on it, so... Well, on the straights, not too much of a difference. I wouldn't say that, damage like this would cost him any straight line speed, but definitely through Rauch, Wirtz, Rindt and Red Bull Mobile, the later half of the track, it definitely will kill some of the cornering speed, especially behind another car. So Kirsten de Beher now having to fight against that, and obviously also trying to stay away from Sheldon Muscat, who has caught back up to that pack.
And that's key for Sheldon Muscat's race, try and get as many points as possible and hope that the leading duo run into troubles. Currently a gap of around 2 seconds at this point in time. That's a big issue out there. Vella's one of them, Skiberis is another, so both of them coming together, it seems, over at Ramus Corner, and that has completely opened the door up. Dean Vella up to third, Beher to fourth, and Muscat now up into fifth position. A big issue for both of them there at probably the fastest point on track.
I'm telling you, Dean, Jake, these guys, they're fighting hard, but when you're fighting hard, these mistakes can happen so quickly. They have to deal with overheated tires and damage of varying degrees, and it's so difficult to just get used to a car fresh after a crash, or after a spin especially. You have to build up some trust again, and Mika Mercia going into pit lane?
Going into the pit lane, so troubles then for Merciaca is clearly not part of the plan. We haven't quite seen what it is, but into the pits then of his own accord, and I wonder whether he only had qualifying fuel in the car and not race fuel.
Oh, that would be... that is such an easy thing to forget. That would be very frustrating.
So back out and away again, and will come out in fifth position. And a lot of work now for the driver who put the car on pole position and looked like was starting to drive away from Aaron Di Battista, who now has the race lead by near enough, almost 10 seconds over Dean Vella in second position. Sheldon Muscat, by the way, after having an issue on the opening lap, through all of it, all of the chaos, is back into third position.
And that's why you can't write anyone out just after lap 1. It's all about just staying consistent around here and, just being able to play your cards right. Dean Vella as well, he's seemingly, keeping that 8 to 9 second gap to Aaron De Battista, and if Sheldon Muscat is able to close that gap to Dean Vella, who knows what will happen. Of course, De Battista now with a lot less pressure directly from having to chase Mercia, and not being chased directly behind, but it's also very crucial. If you're by yourself, it's very easy to make mistakes, very easy to lose time.
Oh, it very much is, but with a gap as large as Aaron Di Battista's is, and the time remaining in this race being 5 minutes and 40 seconds, it's going to have to be an almighty loss of time out there to cause this race to go the wrong direction. Out there overall, 5.5 minutes, and you're considering the lap times that they're doing as Abejo runs incredibly wide coming out of turn 1, and that will give you a thank you very and much then to Mika Merciaca, who jumps back up into fourth position. One of the keys is, okay, you haven't got long in order to get there. Right now, it's going to be 3 seconds a lap needed to chase that down. I don't see that happening in a month of Sundays at this point in time. And I tell you, it won't happen in a month of Sundays, especially due to the fact that today's Thursday.
I mean, the race, it's not really matter what weekday, it's always race day. And, I think these guys always have this attitude as well, when it's time to race, then you get into that mindset automatically, no matter if it's outdoor karting or just any sort of sim race, even in open lobbies, you get really competitive. And that was a really well caught slide, I'll be honest.
That's a big save, and a crucial save. That from Merciaca, because that could have gone wrong any one of a million different ways, and very fortunate the car is still pointing in the straight direction and will be able to keep going out there on track. So crucial in terms of that, and it has just given another little lease of life to Frank Skiberas, who is in 6th position and trying to chase down the gaps. There's a driver at the back of the field right now in Daryl Martinelli, who will have a lot of work to do. Very damaged car at the moment. The front right there of the front wings pretty much scraping against the floor. So that is definitely not what we call a balanced vehicle out on track. But there is your leader, Aaron De Battista. And sometimes when you've got a race like this, the easiest thing for you to do is just to try and put calm, consistent lap times on the board. Going through Schlossgold right now, that is what De Battista is doing. And De Battista will be hoping that that's how good the opening race is going to be, a very calm finish in the second race will pretty much get things going. And watch as well as they go through these corners how the brake discs glow as they try and get themselves down in on the brakes through some very tough corners.
Yeah, it's quite nice to look at as well, you know? It's always this, I don't know how to say it, you know, this contrast from the shadows that fall into the rim and then the bright glowing brake disc. Always a very nice thing to see. Gets you really in the mood to go driving yourself. Even though in any road car that would probably be not so great if the brake disc were to actually glow. But yeah, you can see that Battista really just, you know, taking it easy for now. He knows full well, you know, only 2 laps to go. I'm not gonna be able to pull some huge gaps here. Dean Vella actually adding to the pit lane now as well. Actually, I think he reset to the pit lane because he's behind Martinelli now. So something must have happened there that was completely unexpected, which put Sheldon Muscat now into 2nd place and Michael Mejia into 3rd place.
That's how quickly it can go away. We didn't quite catch what it was, but Dean Vella from 2nd position and some vital points, some vital 20 points are now falling away. And I believe Michael Mejia, for the mistake earlier on, if he can get to Sheldon Muscat and make the move, that's only going to be a net loss of potentially just 5 points for a mistake of forgetting to fill the car up.
And honestly, like, that's really just a coincidence I'd say he needed. And maybe maybe now with the 2nd qualifying and 2nd race, a chance for him to adjust his car to be a little bit more friendly on the long term. I think this might be a case of, you know, his red tires are definitely overheated. Aero a little bit too aggressive so he doesn't suffer from understeer. And yeah, the red tire temperature basically skyrocketing.
Absolutely, their full opposite lock through Schlossgold is not the way forward. But what he does know is that he will be going on now to the final lap. And again, look at them both running off the track, trying to find some space, trying to put everything down on the books. And this is a real chase right now from Murciaka, trying to work out, okay, can I find a way past Sheldon Muscat? These two have raced together so many times before. They will know what each other's strengths and weaknesses are as they will now run down the hill and look for the overtake then at Ramus. You can see how strong the slipstream is, closing, 212 kilometers an hour, having to go the long way around at Ramus on what is a very difficult section of track, but trying to cut up underneath. Again, it's Murciaka, but I don't think quite had the drive, but now here will come the slipstream looking for the move.
Now on the outside for Schlossgold, that's going to be quite difficult. Had a nice over and under switch there through Remus, but can make the same thing happen. Muscat positions his car perfectly there, but doesn't quite get the drive to get clear. And now, you know, even with the shorter way, Mejia has the inside for Rauch and Wirtz. And now the question is, you can see so close, barely any space between the cars, and still side by side, and now Mejia is through.
Yeah, brilliant move, great fighting. Leader is on the final lap then of this race and searching for the move now for 2nd. Murciaka and Muscat going for it. De Battista crosses the line, takes the victory then in race 1 and puts himself one hand through, but Muscat's having to fight around the outside, tyre-to-tyre contact, and Murciaka finds a way through and spares his blushes by only losing the tune of 5 points in this one. It will be third position then for Sheldon Muscat. It will be Kirsten Beha, I do believe, coming to the line in fourth position. And that was a really good drive from Kirsten out there. And Frank Skiberas finishing off in fifth place overall. There is Nathan Vella, who I believe also did come across the line, not sure where. So we'll have to get confirmation of results a little bit later on. But that, crucially for Aaron Di Battista, was a great race. And what a great fight, Nicholas, for second position.
Absolutely. Like, that was a great battle. And, weirdly enough, with both drivers, quite punished, they started quite far at the front as well, P1 and P3. Muscat, the first one to suffer a bad fate at the start, getting turned around by someone. And, then, of course, Mercia with that really unfortunate mess up there. I think, well, it must have been that he forgot to take the quali fuel out and put race fuel in. So, yeah, really unlucky, but still to recover back to a second place. I'm getting almost some throwback here to when Charles Leclerc was still in Formula 2. Used a pit stop in the sprint race, highly atypical, and then came back to win against people who hadn't pitted at all.
And it really does show that when a driver gets the bit between the teeth, they can do some pretty special things out there on the track. And it's often so amazing to see when racers push themselves to the absolute limit. And it is exactly the same with sim racers. They get down, they put all the hard work, all the effort in, they do all the practice the same way that you would do if you're out there in the real world and getting that track time in and that opportunity to work and push and motivate. But the key is, I believe, with sim racing is that you actually get a lot more practice time, and sim racing gets a lot more competitive than, I would say, the real world of racing, because you have unlimited time to go out and understand what a car does and where do you need to go and what do you need to do. I'm not sure how long they've had to get ready and understand this machine extensively, but what they do have is more time to work everything out compared to what you would have in the real world, because in the real world, testing costs money.
Absolutely. Not just getting to the track, also all these usage parts, clutch, tires, engine, everything needs to be, worked over after some time in the car. And, obviously, well, for the racing itself as well, sim racers are able to attack a lot more aggressively simply because they just don't have to preserve themselves whatsoever, so to say. Simply because these guys, they don't get hurt. The hardest pain you can have in a simulator cockpit, unless you're in, a motion simulator, which just falls on its side, like with one of the NASCAR drivers a couple of years ago. The worst pain you can have is in the wrist, maybe. Other than that, you can't get any broken bones or something. So a lot more able to fight here.
Yeah, certainly is. We're going to step aside, though, very, very quickly here with World Pro Racing. We'll be back with the second races after this. Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen, to racing action from the Malta National Online Qualifiers here for the Monaco Esports Federation Sim Racing World Cup. I'm Jake Sperry, Nicholas Hillebrand along with me for the ride. The opening race proved to be very, very up in the air, left, right, everywhere, a few mistakes cropping up, and that ultimately left a case of everyone scrambling about trying to get what they could. It felt very much, Nicholas, like a scavenger's race.
Yeah, absolutely. It pretty much seemed, everyone had everything going according to plan until it wasn't anymore. And, then, the little bit of panic set in. Like you could see Mikael Mercia after his pit stop, he was pushing quite hard, very hard on the edge of what the tires could give him, what the aero could give him. And, mighty impressive that he was able to keep that on the road. Not just that, but also gain, I think, 3 positions in the end.
Absolutely. And moving back then into second position, it's a perfect case of damage limitation. We still haven't quite got results or confirmed results from the opening race. We'll be trying to see whether we can get those in the not too distant future for everyone. But at least as things stand, the top 2, we absolutely do know for certain as they cross the line. Top 3, actually, we could say from that point as well. So they've got a lot to fight for. They've got a lot that they're understanding. But for those who didn't quite get it right in that opening race, the second race pretty much is you got to throw everything on the table because you have no more opportunities after that.
And, our first race winner, he's going to have a target quite literally on his back. And I think especially Sheldon Muscat and Mikael Mejia, they're both going to be aiming, okay, we have to get past him. That is our biggest shot that we can take. And I think for him it's just trying to stay out of trouble as we start second quali now. And for him just to put another good performance on.
Absolutely. And this good performance, which you can find, of course, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Esports Television Network, as well as with the likes, of course, of motorsport.tv and, of course, TVM Sport. There is a really, really strong chance now for these drivers to say, right, put it all together. We are in the thralls of qualifying at this point in time. And this is going to be probably one of the most important qualifyings that they have been looking for and searching for out there, because it is pretty much okay to go out in this session and put everything together. And with it being 15 minutes and that sense of you can reset back to the pits at any time, it allows drivers really to go at 101% in their qualifying effort. So they have certainly got that to keep in the back of the mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's basically the same program as before, except the guys now had a little bit of time to get more accustomed to the car in these conditions here, because it's always one thing, to be able to drive, so to say, at home, like no matter where you practice, practice like in before the race, like days before the race and all that stuff. On the day itself, it's always a little bit different. Just like the excitement of it being the actual event that you've trained for so long, It's being also like that the steering wheel just feels slightly different or whatever could be factoring into it, It's the drivers are now used to this, like this perfect situation here. And, especially Mercia, for example, with his slides in the race, he'll probably want to go, hey, I know this wasn't working as perfectly as maybe I wanted it, so we have to I have to adjust this like this, I have to adjust this like this. And that's also another big difference between sim racers and real drivers from the get-go, when they are driving for these in junior formula, they're paying for the seat, they're paying for that engineer to make them a setup on their feedback. How good their feedback is, that's a whole different question. But drivers, if they start in, basically any simulator where you can't just buy a setup like in iRacing, for example, they have to learn this. They have to learn how this car feels, how they adjust the settings to make it feel better. And all these guys here, I can tell you right now, they're always scrambling. They're always looking to adjust to this perfect new little set, you know, to get a little bit of optimization out of it. How the car handles in clean air, how the car handles in quali fuel on light fuel, how it handles in race fuel, and how it handles in dirty air as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is a whole element that goes into building around a setup and understanding what works in a car and what doesn't. And I think it is the sort of thing where a sim racer who jumps towards the real world, for example, has a lot more understanding of what makes a car work and what makes a car function than someone who is doing exactly the same thing but hasn't had that ability to go in and understand what the car is doing and what every little component does and changes makes to it. There is Frank Skiberes out there at this point in time, currently second fastest at this point, a 1:31.4. The inaugural times then starting to jump in on the board, and this is probably a key moment in time. This is your bench setting laps then, the opening 5 minutes of the bench setting. The 5 minutes to 10 minutes is probably when you're going to start really searching for that time and positioning yourself, getting that good banker in. And then those final 5 minutes, throw everything on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also just a little bit of, you know, the track grip building up, you know? Like, the track does develop a little bit over the session, so it gets a little bit more grippy and, you know, just builds up rubber. Not completely dynamic, but, you know, still it's a scripted progress. The longer you drive, the more grippy the track gets. And of course, in hot temperatures, that's sometimes a bit of a curse as well, simply because, you know, the more grip you have, the more rubber you've laid down, rubber also heats up a little bit more when it's completely down on the circuit. So, you know, it's again one of these balancing acts, you know, getting into that perfect time window for these soft tires to operate in.
Yeah, certainly do. Andrea Ritzer then driving from the World Pro Racing Centre in Malta. Such a fantastic facility and one of the very few dedicated sim racing facilities out there in the world. And I think that's something that's really, really crucial and important to developing a scene in these national championships as you go around, Nicholas, is the fact that you can go to a race, you know, and, you know, you've got that racing ability, but you've got a place like this, you can see it on screen. That is what you get when you go to Malta and you're trying to cultivate an esports and a sim racing scene. When you have a facility like this, that is just a crucial point of development to go out there and to really build up from the ground up competitive racing time and time again.
I mean, also for, you know, complete on-site LAN events, that's also perfect because everyone has exactly the same equipment, you know? There are no differences there, you know? You don't have someone driving with a €2,000 direct drive wheel and a custom-made €2,500 rim. Everyone's driving on the same equipment, Thrustmaster, which is very sturdy equipment, which, you know, has been proven time and time again to be very, very good. And I think actually in the case of Andrea Rizzo, he's actually one of the, like, he's a big minority, I think, here, because he's actually a guy who doesn't have his own rig at home, so he actually did pretty much his first laps in practice earlier and is now just getting used to the car here, and was actually building his setup earlier still. So yeah, that's one thing I remember from, like, you know, the long time ago from the last event where I saw him drive in the World Pro Racing world. But yeah, it's still the case. So, you know, to just come here, get adjusted to stuff, and, you know, just be able to perform here. Of course, getting unlucky in the first race here, but still being able to be within this time gap of all the others, despite just jumping in here and, you know, starting from scratch, quite literally. Really, hats off. That is mighty impressive.
It certainly is, and sixth fastest at the moment on a 1:32.4 is definitely no slouch out there. Mika Mercieka then goes fastest, a 29.793. Very good lap, just a half a tenth slower than the original lap time. And just pulling off then into the pits then was Aaron Di Battista with a 1:29.8. So was able to go just about 6, 7 tenths of a second slower than Murcieka out there at this point in time. Dean Vella currently the third fastest on a 1:30.4. But what I did find very interesting about qualifying is that Kirsten Beher has completely avoided touching the opening half of this second qualifying session. Has said, I only need 6.5, 7 minutes to go out there, set my time, and get up as far forward as possible.
I mean, he was also one of the more unlucky ones in that first race, so, you know, maybe just a little bit more time to just reset, you know, just maybe, like, get up, you know, just go walk a little round, you know. I certainly do that myself sometimes after, when it's like a multiple race event, you know, just get all the tension off, you know, you get really like tense in that rig, you know, all your muscles get completely like stressed, so to say. Obviously not like full body training and all that stuff, but still, you know, you're in that position, you know, you're really concentrating. And just to get a little bit more, you know, relaxed again, to just cool down a little bit, it really helps to just walk that little lap, even if you miss a little bit of time, maybe. You know, just getting that lap, the other laps. Sorry. You know, just that mental cooldown is a very big thing, not just in sim racing, but also in real racing as well.
Yes, and that ability to prepare and to mentally be in the right space, I think, is crucial in terms of putting the right times together on the board. We're watching Kirsten Beher now on their first flying lap, looking to try and run through the middle sector around this circuit, and truly a tough middle sector out there, because you have to be prepared for these very downforce intensive middle corners, these two left-handers, which do feel completely like a throw from the stop-start nature of the opening part of the lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is also something that caught out the other guys, you know, early on in the race, all these spins that we saw around here. You know, you have this rather slow-paced stuff where you are getting a lot of heat into the tires, you know? You're getting this slight wheel spin out of Remus and out of Niki Lauda curve, and that puts maybe dangerously like high temperatures into rear tires if you're pushing too much, and especially at the start, you know, where you have that bit of wheel spin as well on the rear tires. And then all of a sudden, you get into these high-speed corners where obviously you would like some more downforce, but you can't put on downforce because of all these long straights. So all the load that normally the wings would be taking, you know, into account, you know, all this downforce that would be additionally pressing you on, this load instead all gets taken from the tires. So it gets more and more heat. All of a sudden, they're in this very high temperature window, and what does rubber do when it gets hot? It gets, you know, very soft, it loses grip.
It certainly does. Sheldon Muscat currently fourth fastest. Nathan Vella is in sixth position at this point in time and is making that run to the line. Did a 1:31.452. Remains in sixth position right now. Andrea Rizzo currently in fifth. Frank Scaberis, who was third in qualifying, the opening race, is all the way back down in seventh at this point in time. Aaron De Battista just behind on the circuit of Nathan Vella out there at the moment, so they certainly have that they're trying to keep in the back of their minds. But crucially, it is 1/10 splitting fifth through seventh, and the gaps have sort of opened up just a little bit more. You do have Kirsten Beher there, who has jumped up into fifth position. You do have Sheldon Muscat, though, a half a second down the road. Then Dean Vella, a half a second down the road. Then Aaron De Battista, half a second down the road. Ultimately, it is these half a second gaps which are effectively bracketeering off one driver to the next, Nicholas.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, again, these half seconds, you know, it's very easy to make small mistakes, just lose the momentum, miss the apex a little bit, you know, just through high-speed corners, it's half a tenth already as well. So, especially just through these corners here, through Niki Lauda, and now the way up, you know, for Sheldon Muscat, this is perfect, actually, because he's got some slipstream up here now. He's gonna be, you know, quite happy. Probably 1 to 2 tenths that you can gain up the hill here. And now, especially here, though, through Remus, having to get the perfect traction just a little bit wider here, because just the incline is a little bit less steep, a little bit less off camber over that crest.
Yeah.
Gives you a little bit more traction, gets a good run, and now just getting the rest of the corners, which aren't, I think, as technical. Like, they're still obviously difficult to perfectly get right, but Remus and Niki Lauda are really those corners that can kill laps before they properly begin.
The two Vellas then improving. Dean Vella to a 1:30.1, Nathan Vella to a 1:31 flat. Kirsten Abeja has also improved to a 31.1, so goes 6th fastest overall, just improving that lap time. So times are coming down then, and we are inside the final minute. Sheldon Muscat making a way up to the crest of the hill for dropping down through the right then of Jochen Rindt and moving to that final corner, really trying to maximise the circuit, and has this move to the inside, does like making that move, might cost a little bit by just making that shift, but that's a 29.929. That's a big lap time for Sheldon Muscat, moving 3rd fastest with that one in the dying embers of qualifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Just getting that run up the hill, I think that really helped. Having that person coming out of the pit lane, giving him a little bit of a tow up the hill, because especially up the hill, you want the least air resistance as possible. You want the least holding you back to actually, make that incline up. And Aaron De Battista, also I think on a fast lap, the last man in the top 5 to actually now be able to challenge Michael Mathieu. The question now is, was the beginning of this lap fast enough? And, it all comes down to the last 2 corners now.
It does, especially when you consider that Aaron De Battista knows that the drivers behind maybe won't be following. That was very wide through turn 9. There'll be questions on whether Aaron's got away with that one, making the run up towards the start-finish line. Is there going to be any improvement there? The answer looks like it is going to be a no, and will remain in 2nd position. Frank Skiberis has also crossed the line, I do believe, so is going to be finished on a 31.385, is not going to improve any more than that out there in qualifying, which just leaves Andrea Rizzo out there, who is in a position to potentially improve on time, and will not, because Andrea is going to be diving down then into terms of qualifying efforts. So Michael Mathieu getting back-to-back pole positions, but the stopwatch we know does not lie in terms of pace, but the race might be a little bit different. I think Sheldon Muscat wants to get back after that last corner overtake for 2nd position at this point in time, Nicholas.
Absolutely, and I think, honestly, if Muscat doesn't have that much bad luck in the start this time, as he had in last race, I really think this could be a 3-way battle all the way through the race. And of course, very crucially as well, Mathieu really, if he gets that fuel in now, that will probably be a close fight to the end there, because I think whether he pitted or not, I think either way, there was still something with his car that could have, that nervosity that we saw in the latter half of the race could have brought him closer to the fight with, sorry, name quickly fell through here.
Aaron De Battista, by chance?
Yes.
And I believe in that case, Aaron De Battista had a really, really strong showing. Didn't really show any weakness. Maybe wasn't the fastest driver in terms of raw pace, but kept the car on the island. And sometimes that's all you need to do to win a race, or to be competitive in a race, is just do not make a mistake. Keep the car on the island, and drivers around you will make mistakes, and you will gain time that way. And often that is the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And these mistakes are just so easy to make, especially around here. The hot spots again, turn 1, turn 3, and it's especially as well the last 2 corners. That these 2 left-handers we have, everything else being right-handers. Very high speeds, very light car over there. If you're in dirty air, you have different aero balance. Very easy to make a mistake there as well, as we saw from Andrea Rizzo last race start. So we really have to see who keeps it together, and who profits the most from positioning himself perfectly in basically every situation they get themselves in.
We should be going over to the starting field shortly, getting ourselves ready for the second and last race that we have today. Points will be calculated after this second race, and the top 2 in the championship booked themselves a place from this national qualifiers to continental qualifiers later on in the year for, of course, that Monaco Esports Federation Cup. And, of course, thanks to the World Esports, the IESF, they will get themselves through. But it's race time, ladies and gentlemen. So we're to play. The drivers are set. The stage now is going to set itself up quite nicely. And it will be down to who wants this one and the points that come along. 6 red lights will be getting themselves ready up on screen. And as they go and get themselves ready, we are going to kick off this final race once more into the breach. Lights on and lights out. 15 minutes on the clock. And Mikhail Mercheka makes a really, really good start then, running in towards the opening corner. De Battista will follow. First 3 go through without a hitch at all. And some good fighting back there for 4th. Abeja and Vela fighting. Dean Vela, that is, for position. Nathan Vela sitting behind, trying to find the right angle, but immediately Mercheka defending hard to the inside on the run to Reimers, because Aaron De Battista is trying to go the long way around on this opening lap and up the hill and back down it towards Schlossgold.
Yeah, and you can see already though, like, even though they had this gap at the beginning, really, really interesting to see that Sheldon Muscat is just able to keep with them. This is what I said, they're going side by side everywhere. They're not losing that much time, but they're losing enough time for Sheldon Muscat to close up there, and for the next long straight, if he stays there, he'll definitely be able to attack as well.
Oh, and again around the outside, Aaron De Battista goes. Mikhail Mercheka trying to hold the inside. Surely will have to yield here through Verth corner, because suddenly the door's going to open up and you can't shut it anymore on Sheldon Muscat, who prizes it open. Tyre to tyre. It's going to move to the inside here. It's 3 wide. They're going to think about for this race lead. And Muscat moves forward, but he's going to run massively wide. They all are. And this is going to be very scary through the final corner. Muscat way on the outside. Opens up the door for Dean Vela now to fight here as they fight the front 4 on this straight. And someone's not moved off the start then, so there's troubles there that they'll have to deal with. But crucially, a good run as they go through the opening section. Outright, and Mercheka's around, and trouble as he and Dean Vela come together, and Mercheka once again will be on the back foot.
That is so unlucky. That was the slightest slip-up, I think. So, really, really unlucky there. Mercheka, he really can't get a break, can he? But this time, at least, not as far back. I don't think he had a very bad problem there. Like, he didn't have a big problem with, like, big impact or something. So I don't think he has too much damage. But he really has to pray that Sheldon Muscat is able to fight De Battista to a standstill, so to say, so he can keep catching back up here.
Yeah, I certainly think that he's got to keep driving, especially with Sheldon Muscat in second position, because that difference is just 5 points. So really, in terms of Mikhail Mercheka, absolutely has to get back to Sheldon Muscat in second position and Aaron De Battista, who leads this race. Otherwise, it is going to get very, very close in terms of points. And at this point in time, De Battista absolutely guarantees a way through. Sheldon Muscat would then go through second overall in points. Top 2, remember, is to keep in mind. And these top 2 at this point in time are doing just enough. But Sheldon Muscat having a little poke then to the inside, trying to figure out a way to go through. A little bit heavy over that anti-cut curve on the outside from Aaron De Battista. But look at the gap they've already built. 3 seconds, and there's Spinner in the background. Then I think that was Frank Skiberis who's just gone around.
Yeah, so unlucky for him further in the back, but this is also helping Mikhail Mercheka just catch up again. Now 3.1 seconds behind the fight for P3 there. Kirsten Bay also aggressively defending against Nathan Vela. And, that's really, really something to behold there. Aaron De Battista able to go past Sheldon Muscat again. So really difficult to just make a pass actually stick around here. But Muscat also not willing to actually just back down and just take a breather there. He really wants to be full on in the attack. He wants to be in the lead, and De Battista is really defending hard to not make that happen.
No, I'd agree, because first and first just makes life really easy on the mathematics for Aaron De Battista. Knows as well that if he falls back into second, he has that opportunity, if Mercieka were to chase back up into third position and chase down that move, jump Mercieka up into second, it might actually put him on the wrong side of the points, because you'd have a three-way tie over at the top if Sheldon Muscat were to take the race lead and Mercieka to jump into second position with De Battista in third, and 3 into 2 definitely doesn't add up, especially when you consider the mathematics. But it is going to be Sheldon Muscat who is in second. Aaron De Battista leads, but the battle for third and fourth becomes an interesting prospect as well, and how they will fight in this race, Kirsten Abeja and Nathan Vella, because they know they can't do anything about the points right now, Nicholas, in terms of this. They are out of it as they go through. Incidents involving Mikael Mercieka and Dean Vella will be investigated after the race, so that will be another crucial thing to keep in mind. Race direction is going to have a little bit of a talking point after this race.
Absolutely, and I think it's just unlucky for Dean Vella as well. Wrong place, wrong time, slight touch, and, you know, immediately it was a very, very unlucky situation through turn 1, so definitely not of the impact he wanted to have on the top 4 fight. And, unlucky. That's the only word I can really think of in this situation.
I think you make your own luck in sim racing sometimes, and it is interesting now, is there is Dean Vella, who is in 7th position, and Andrea Rizzo then is just in front of that, and is trying every which way to hold this off. And the face of concentration that's there, we'll take a driver's eye perspective then as we run up the hill towards Jochen Rindt, turn 9 out here on track. And really it is a not much movement in terms of that. So stoic. And there's a car that's gone 3 miles off the circuit. Kirsten Abeja has had a huge off.
And again, it's this very high-speed section. You put 1 foot wrong with that enormous drop in Red Bull Mobile, and you can just go off very, very hard. I mean, the best example in real life of that was Lewis Hamilton last weekend as well. And there's Nathan Vella, the next one, and that puts Mikael Mercieka into the top 3 again already.
And someone's had a huge off there in the back. I think that's Daryl Martinelli, who's just gone off there at turn 1. So Martinelli struggling, and that'll be race pretty much done. But it's 3 wide. Oh, it is 3 wide. And contact round's going to go. Andrea Rizzo was that potentially going around. So troubles then 4th, 5th, and 6th. And Andrea Rizzo, no, he's still there. So that would have been Nathan Vella potentially, who was there. But everyone's battling, and everyone's trying to find every which way to get a position. And going around, that's going to be Scaberis then making the move. So dramas every which way you look right now. They're not going to want to give an inch at this point in time. They're really trying to find an angle to attack.
And it's really, really tricky as well, because it's so easy said and done to just say, you know, oh, they'll go on the attack here, they'll get the move done. It's shown again and again here. Just overdo it a little bit like here with Frank Scaberis here. And you lose so much momentum. You have to build all of that up again. And meanwhile, you're just losing a very important gap. You need about, I think, 4 tenths, pretty much. You have to be 4 tenths behind the car ahead on the end of this straight and keep that gap through turn 1 to be able to make a move into turn 3. So, you know, just being able to keep that consistency up, that's a very big part here.
Incidents involving Mercieka and Nathan Vella will be investigated after the race as well. So twice now, that is Mikael Mercieka on the books then of the steward. So we'll keep an eye on that. But at least at this point, it is Aaron De Battista who leads. Sheldon Muscat in second. Mikael Mercieka maybe driving the car a little bit too much right now in third. Nathan Vella has dived into the pits then. So that will be pretty much race over for Nathan in terms of this race. But as things stand, as the Nathan Vella will get back out and away again, as things stands, Nicholas, it will be a tie on points between Sheldon Muscat and Mikael Mercieka, and I'm not quite too sure what the tiebreak rules are.
It's a good question. It's actually something that I'm not quite clear about myself yet. But, I mean, we still have 6 minutes to go. Charles Muscat is still, I'd say, within strike range. He's still within slipstream range, and around certain parts of the circuit, he is definitely faster than Aaron De Battista. So, we really have to wait and see here in this situation whether De Battista will actually slip up. This time he has to be a lot more on his toes, that's for sure.
I tell you what, I hope it doesn't go to alphabetical, because ME beats MU in terms of how that plays out at this point. But Aaron De Battista knows that leading this race, winning this race, is going forward. Now, this is going to be key. We're just getting some confirmation in that the tiebreaker is according to qualifying times, and that, without a shadow of a doubt, is Murcieka's domain.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both pole positions, speak for themselves. But that is really even more of a point now here. De Battista with that slight little wiggle there out of turn 3. This crest, so vicious to just get it right over that. And so quickly the back kicks out. Muscat is now in the range, and again, the crest. I feel like I'm cursing these people.
Yeah, Skiberis then doing exactly the same thing, dropping the position to Andrea Rizzo then for 6th place. So Frank Skiberis has got more work to do, closing back in the draft, moving towards the inside as they go through. So there is, of course, the investigation out there against Murcieka, the 2 investigations that are there, so keep that in mind in terms of the race, with both fellas, Dean and Nathan, 2 separate incidents. But on top of that, if Sheldon Muscat, Rizzo's going to go around. Big slide, lighting up the tyres, going through, and that kick in the grass, pointing the car 180 degrees in the wrong direction. And yeah, this is going to be painful to get back on circuit, because you get that influx of grip that goes through. But if Sheldon Muscat wants to win this race outright and wants no help from the stewards to essentially go through on track on merit, then in terms of this position, Sheldon Muscat's really going to want to try and get the pass on Aaron De Battista.
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually it might be that De Battista is running a slightly lower downforce set, if I'm looking over at the moment, because in these last stages of the lap, Muscat is always able to close, and even when he's within this time frame where he's already getting slipstream from De Battista ahead, De Battista is able to keep the gap or actually gain a little bit. So, I think Muscat really has to try and put the best Sector 2s and Sector 3s of his life now in to be able to get close to De Battista, to get into that 4/10th window, to be able to pull alongside.
One thing I can confirm is that we are in a fixed series at this moment with a fixed setup, so it's going to be more driving style, I think, which is making the differences. And De Battista, I think, is just lightning in a bottle in the opening sector, and that gap for the first time extends out over a second, moving through the penultimate corner, and a little bit more work this time compared to last time in terms of the battle that they have going on here between the top 2. But they know they have to keep pushing, and they can't afford to sit up and wait and play games, because it's only 4.5 seconds back to Murcieka. The moment you start playing games, you have an instant Murcieka's with an in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's now the big race of attrition, really, because everyone obviously needs to keep up their top edge pace. Everyone needs to keep up with, everything that they're doing, while also not overheating the tires, because it's been 13 minutes now, we have had 8 laps, and these tires will be worn to different degrees. Some more than others. That will definitely not help, that little nice power slide of Melchior. But, yeah, it's just really all about management now and keeping up the rhythm.
Everyone's sort of spread themselves out by about 2 or 3 seconds here and there, except the battle for the race lead, with Sheldon Muscat trying to cling on to Aaron De Battista, who's just trying to turn the screw and effectively keep Sheldon Muscat here at an arm's length. Now, they do have lap traffic in the form of Daryl Martinelli just in front, so they'll have to deal with that. Nathan Vella has jumped up to 7th position in the meanwhile, getting past Martinelli, getting past Andrea Rizzo, even with the stops. And Martinelli then lets one car through and should let the other go by, and does so into turn 9. So nice, respectful lap traffic, but that gap has slowly clawed itself back down once again. Murcieka's gone, and that could just decide it if Dean Vella can find a way through. It's not going to be much of a gap. Careful on the rejoin. That was so dangerous, so close. But Dean Vella is now into third position.
If the other incidents don't spark anything, I think that just might. That was a very dangerous rejoin from Mercier. I can absolutely understand his frustration there, riding the razor's edge and, not being able to fully pull through then. But, that was hairy. That was a very good reaction from Dean Vella.
This will be the final lap of the race. So Mercier is on the outside looking in at this point in fourth position. The top two at the moment, Aaron De Battista and Sheldon Muscat. Qualifiers later on in the year, if it stays like this. De Battista will go with 2 victories as things stand. Sheldon Muscat with a third and a second. It's on in the battle for third and fourth at this point as Mercier on the timing tower, I believe, has just gone through on Dean Vella and has picked up the position. So that's something to keep in mind. But that will all be a 5-second penalty for an unsafe rejoin for Mercier. So that is pretty much going to do that at this point in time. Dean Vella is through, and that will pretty much put an end to Mercier's event as he goes through. But Aaron De Battista will make the drive then through the final corner and over to the line on the double, books a place through to the Continental Qualifiers, and Sheldon Muscat shadowing behind is a very, very strong second.
Yeah, absolutely. Really well driven from both of them. Sheldon Muscat really showing, that he is able to keep up with the lead as well when he doesn't get impeded with incidents. And honestly, just really impressive drive from both of them. De Battista obviously setting the pace for today. And Mercier, both qualifying absolutely phenomenal, but just unlucky in the first race, the fuel interacting there, driving perfectly back up to second place then. But in the second time, just pushing a little bit too much. He won't be happy with that. And, the 5-second penalty, unfortunately, definitely deserved in that situation. And Dean Vella therefore snatching that third place in the second race.
A couple of donuts there being done in celebration for De Battista and for Sheldon Muscat as well, but some incredible racing bringing itself then to the forefront. And those two, I think, have been the calmest two drivers out there in qualification. They haven't reacted really too much to all of the mistakes that have been going on a very difficult car to master. So I think that they've done a great job. And I think bringing the two most consistent and arguably two of the quickest drivers in through that qualifying, getting themselves sorted, moving themselves up now into racing action when it comes to the Continental Qualifiers. Just how important is it now to stay calm in their positions and know that when they go through and they have to deal with what the various countries of the world have available in their back pocket, what do you feel they will have to do in order to stand out and book their place in the final?
Quite honestly, I think exactly what they did today, especially in the second race. Both of them, Aaron and Sheldon as well, both of them just stayed out of trouble. Both of them just kept racing. They kept being undeterred by everything else around them. Obviously, hard racing as well between the two of them, but staying fair, do not incur the wrath of the stewards, stay out of incidents, stay consistent. That's going to be the main things going forward from here. And they've displayed today already that they can do this already on a very, challenging track where you have to make some, let's say, some sort of problems,
So provisionally we can confirm that with 50 points, Aaron De Battista is first position and wins the Malta National Online Qualifiers here. Sheldon Muscat will be in second place on 40 points and book a place moving on with the Monaco Esports Federation. And of course, the Malta Esports Federation on top of that, of course, running this event over towards the amazing qualifiers that have themselves going on forward. So I believe we're going to be jumping in with interviews.
In the beginning, I was fighting with
Had that contact.
just keeping the car on the track. Sometimes the rear was snapping, the tire wheel was kicking in, and I thought that I couldn't push a lot, and I had to keep it on the track.
Well, you're through as the victor of the Malta National Qualifiers. You move into European qualifying coming up later in the year. So in terms of being out there as the driver who picked up maximum points here in your Malta qualifiers, moving over to the European qualifiers, how do you look at tackling the field as and when all the national qualifiers have got themselves settled and the people who are there looking to try and qualify for the World Cup bring themselves together? What will you be looking for in terms of preparing for the field that will be coming up for you next?
I will keep practicing with the car on the track, keep finding a bit more the limits and see where I could improve. And yeah, I'm ready to face the European qualifiers.
Well, Aaron De Battista is ready. Bring it on now, why don't we? So a big victory there. Two very, very strong wins overall and a maximum 50 points. Nicholas, final thoughts before we bring things to a close here from the Red Bull Ring.
Well, we saw some great racing today. And even though I forgot Aaron's name in the middle there, in the break between the two races, I certainly won't be forgetting it anytime soon, because that was one hell of a drive today. And yeah, from both of our drivers in the top two here, well done. And I'm very much looking forward to the national qualifiers for
racing, and that goes into some amazing places, and you can catch that on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitch, and on top of that you can catch it with ESTV, the Esports Television Network. You can catch it over in Malta, and on top of that you can catch it with motorsport.tv over on the internet as well. Massive thanks to everyone who has got it done behind the scenes. The stewarding team, of course, of Adrian Fagayo and George Muscat. On cameras, we've had Justin Missard here today, and of course from Nicholas Hillebrand along with me. I've been Jake Sperry. That was a race, or two races I should say, where calm managed to prevail over a couple of hot heads. It was all about a mixture of pace and I would say patience, and patience paid off. Welcome to European qualifiers, Aaron De Battista and Sheldon Muscat. They will have their races, but there are more qualifiers for the upcoming future, and we will see you very soon.